Excellent. I always just like to ask people beforehand. You never know.
Very, very polite. I do too.
Yeah. Wow. I like your enterprise behind you. That's pretty cool, man.
That's a reason. I only got that about 2 months ago, and I have been trying to get that for about 5 years.
Oh, nice.
Very, very hard to get for the right price and the right condition.
Is that the motion picture, or is that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very bizarre company based in Massachusetts that like didn't make toys.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow got a license to Star Trek, the motion picture. And that is one of the most original, unique, bonkers, and you can't tell, but it's modular. You can literally take the nacelles off and plug them into the saucer section. Like, it's bonkers.
I remember for the motion picture once, I was in a toy store years ago. Like I'm in Montreal, and it was a good 10 years though after the movie came out. And I remember Star Trek motion picture, they had these really kind of garish crew uniforms in the film. And the toy company had put out stencils for like how to make the outfits or something for Halloween. And it was like, I feel like they didn't sell many of those.
Yeah, one day, I have a dream that when I'm retired, I'm going to make one documentary a year and nothing else. Like, yeah. I'm just going to enjoy retirement and make one movie a year. And it's going to be the stuff I can't sell now because people shouldn't buy it. It's just my kind of crap. And one of the things I want to do a doc about is the utterly bonkers licensors on Star Trek the motion picture.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that because it's so strange. I mean, I feel like they had no idea what they were. I mean, it reminds me of that the toys that made us that you did about Star Wars. You know, where like nobody really knew what was going on with those companies, and they didn't know how big the licensing would be. That's so strange.
Well, it's different with Star Trek. It's actually really funny because Paramount did know what they were doing, but the movie went so over budget. Katzenberg was saying to the licensing people, I don't care, just get money. and that's how this thing came about. That's how I have a whole section over there of bonkers puzzles, Star Trek jewelry, and it was all from Katzenberg just needing to get the money, the budget covered.
A Lieutenant Ilea bald cap, maybe, for the kids.
That's brilliant. We got to do that.
So, okay, I got to ask you, watching a bit of the documentary, because it's about toy stores, obviously, and I think that's something that's very special to all of us. But one thing I couldn't help but notice, and it's probably the premise of your documentary, is that toy stores in general have been kind of closing down over the last couple of years, right? We used to have a massive one in Canada, Toys R Us, and it feels like most of those chains are closing down. I couldn't imagine how hard it would be for the mom and pop stores, but now you got, COVID going on and lockdown. So can you explain to me a little bit about how this season is different from the first season and how it embraces that?
Unless I'm mistaken, I think there's two questions there.
Yes.
I'll answer the first one first. So if you and I were talking a year ago,
yeah,
I'd agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Toy stores are going out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even a year and a half ago,
mm-hmm.
There has been a boom in vintage toy stores that is, to call it unprecedented would be an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, there were 2 vintage toy stores in Burbank.
Mm-hmm.
There are now 5, and a 6th is opening later this year. I can sit here for an hour and tell you similar statistics. Dallas used to have 3, now they have 5. So there's a show on Netflix, I've been told, that has rekindled people's love. Here's the good news about that show on Netflix.
Could it be your show?
Hey, it's hard to talk about it because I feel like an egomaniac, but this is
it's very popular.
But this is what the stores are telling me.
Yeah.
And also, even stores and people I've never spoken to in my life, I'm reading them doing interviews saying, thanks to the toys that made us, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to not be an egotistical asshole, but at the same time, you asked the question, I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability, truthfully. So a lot of what's happened is, on the good side, more and more people are saying, I love toys.
Mm-hmm.
I hate my job. Why don't I just open a toy store?
Sure.
That's the good news. The bad news, prices have gone up drastically, which is why people now think they can open a store and make a lot of money, and they can. The other weird thing that happened is, and now I'm sort of getting to your second question. So COVID, if we were doing this interview March, April, May of last year, almost every store thought they were going out of business.
Yeah.
If we were doing this interview August, September, October, every store would say they are having the best year in the history of the store.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So what happened, and this is a theory, what I'm about to say, I don't have any proof of this, but here's what I think happened. I think in March, everybody was worried about the world ending and getting fired or pay cuts, and they stopped spending. Mm-hmm. Then in August, or starting in August, I think a lot of people didn't get fired, didn't take pay cuts, didn't get furloughed. But not only that, they weren't going to Disneyland for a week.
Sure.
They weren't going to Paris for a week. They weren't having fancy dinners and fancy bottles of wine at restaurants for 10 months. They had a lot more money in their pockets in August than they normally do. So the best quote I heard was Larry at Blast from the Past in Burbank said, this is about 2 months ago, he said, Wednesdays feel like Saturdays, and Saturdays feel like the weekend before Christmas.
Interesting.
So how is season 2 different than season 1? I don't know, maybe I'm being too hard on myself, but I think in season 1, I focused too much on COVID. I think it was the right thing to do for the show, but in retrospect, I think it was the wrong thing to do for a population stuck indoors.
Yeah.
That wanted to watch a TV show about toys.
Yeah. And
then I shoved COVID down their throats again. So season 2, I would say season 1 was 80% COVID, 20% toys. And season 2 was 15% COVID, 85% toys. And to be honest with you, that's the only difference.
But so I guess you did a lot of shooting though with like iPhones and stuff like that though, because you couldn't really have a crew, right? Not, I guess, well, you could, but not like
cross off the word a lot.
Yeah.
We did all the shooting with iPhones. And
Wow.
Also, let me remove the word we.
Yeah.
We didn't shoot shit.
Yeah.
All the stores shot it themselves.
Oh, interesting.
They would send, the only thing we shot was my intros. I shot those myself with my wife. And I swear to God, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm the only one who screwed up. Literally every frame we got from every store was fine. But when I shot my first couple things, our post department was like, do it again. But yeah, the stores shot everything themselves and we just edited it. And then we would tell them, can you shoot this? Can you shoot that? We would give them a list of shots we needed, but they shot everything themselves.
I guess it helps with when you're filming something you're passionate about, because it's funny, we do a toy show on JOBLO, the JOBLO Collectors Corner, and we have people sometimes shoot their own collections, and when you get the footage, it looks beautiful, right? Because people shoot it so lovingly, right? And they know exactly how to light it, and they know exactly what you need to see, and so that's actually quite heartening to hear that. What do you think it is about vintage toys though that get everybody, that really strike a chord? Give me a second. I want to show you something. It didn't even occur to me until just now, but, oh, damn, where is it?
Ha.
Well, I have an Alf doll here. Yeah, right here. Okay. Now, why is it that a guy who's close to 40 years old still has this in his room? His Alf doll from when he got
I have a theory.
Yeah. But what is it? What is it about these vintage toys, you think, that make us all kind of hold on to them?
So,
such love
and obviously what I'm about to tell you is my opinion. I'm not a psychiatrist. This is just my opinion. So what I think it is, and this is from making toys that made us. Like, I didn't have this theory 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's what I think it is. It's not about the toy.
Yeah.
It's about you.
Yeah.
The toy reminds you of who you were.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the example I always give. Like, when I'm almost 45 and I grew up in New York. When I was growing up, I was young enough that there were still drills in case Russia started launching ICBMs at us. So here I am in the 4th grade, and all of a sudden the principal goes, we're doing a duck and cover test in 5, 4, and all of us had to get under our desks and hide. So I'm 10. Our teacher was probably in her 50s.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same situation for us and for her. Except for me at 10, I don't know what an ICBM is. I don't know what nuclear horror is. All I know is I'm getting to stop doing a stupid math class and have fun and goofing around with my buddies. But here's the teacher. Her math class is getting interrupted. She knows we're all fucking around and being idiots, passing notes, but she can't do anything because we're supposed to be practicing duck and cover.
Mm-hmm.
So toys remind you of who you were before you knew what credit card debt was, before you had a mortgage, before you knew what an STD was. Like, that's what toys do for you. And that's why I think, especially these days where every day seems worse than the next for the last 10 months, like that, it gives you peace because it reminds you of a time when you didn't have all that crap on your shoulders.
Well, and it's also almost like traveling in time, right? You know, I like to collect vinyl. And when I go to an old vinyl store, you know, and I open up a record and, you know, I found an old joint inside of one, you know, and it's just, it kind of like, it brings you back to that time, right? And there's like a smell about it, and there's a fact that somebody's used it before, you know, and it's been loved and it's been used, and you almost have, you know, you're almost living that person's experience, like holding it, like, well, not exactly, but it does have like a kind of a almost type of time travel about it though, in some ways, doesn't it?
I always bring it up, so I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
The smell.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say to me, do you get as much enjoyment from online shopping as you do from going into a store? And the answer is no, I do not. But a major reason why, I love the smell.
Yeah.
Like, it's just I just love that smell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it really brings you back. It's similar to, I have a friend that collects 35mm prints movies, you know, and I go to watch them at his place all the time, right? And it's one of those things, why are you watching this beaten up 35mm print when there's like this beautiful 4K of it? I'd rather watch the beaten up 35mm print, you know, because that's how they saw it back then. Yeah,
that's true. But I would also argue 99% of the time, it looks better.
Yeah.
Beaten up 35. That, like, I've seen certain movies recently, movies that came out in the 80s on a 4K TV.
Yeah.
That look horrible. It's just too good.
Yeah. I had that experience with Total Recall a couple weeks ago, actually. But then on 35, it looks amazing, right?
It looks real.
Yeah. That's interesting, though. So well, that brings me to another thing about you, and this isn't exactly surrounding your show, but you also do the movies that made us on Netflix as well, right? And the holiday movies that made us.
We do.
Do you have anything else planned along those lines coming out on Netflix? Because I know we all really look forward to seeing those every year, and I like it, especially when you do the deep cuts with the toys, like the deeper cuts, like the kind of hearing the stories about, you know, I love the Masters of the Universe episode, right? And about those toys. Would you ever kind of dig even deeper into that, like into that kind of?
So as it relates to doing more blank that made us, I can only tell you what I tell everybody when I get asked this. Mm-hmm. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay.
As it relates to doing like another He-Man episode or something like that, theoretically possible, highly unlikely realistically.
Yeah, sure. I always thought that the He-Man toys came from Conan the Barbarian, that they just had to get rid of the heads or something, but I guess that was kind of an urban legend.
Yeah, there's a lot of those in the toy business.
So how would you, if for people that are collectors out there that want to support their local toy shops, what would you suggest that they do? What is the message that you're trying to impart to them?
Yeah, it's very simple. Buy things from that store.
Yeah,
As
rather than online.
Well, no, online too is fine. It, like, nobody's looking for a handout. Like, what we're trying to do with the show is twofold. We're giving the majority of the profit back to the stores.
Sure.
So there's two ways we're doing that. One is anytime anybody watches the show, it makes money, and then we give the stores their cut. But the other way is to help them increase their exposure so that people do go online and buy stuff from them.
Well, I mean, I hope that they keep going. You know, it's always a shame when you go to a place like LA and you see some of these older places that used to be with collectibles that closed down, right? I know in Montreal, a million stores that I used to go to when I was a teenager and when I was in my 20s have all closed down. So whatever we can do to keep those places open.
I've been in Montreal. Last year was the first time in 13 years I was not in Montreal.
Oh, is that true?
Summer. Huh?
Oh, what do you go for?
Just for laughs.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
There was only one store in Montreal that I like, and my God, is it hard to get to.
Which store?
I couldn't tell you the name, but you know, in Montreal, you got these like freeways that are dug down. So it's like they dug up a track and then they built the freeway like, it's not underground. Like, you can look up and see the sky. Yeah. There's a toy store right in front of that kind of thing. And I know that's probably a terrible description. It's very small. I believe it's owned by an Asian guy in his late 50s because he's the one who's always behind the counter. Yeah. But that's the only it's the only store I found in Montreal where I like always get something when I'm there.
Yeah, there used to be a lot more, but unfortunately, they all made way for condos. It's kind of too bad.
I believe it.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it. Good luck with your Alf.
Yeah, thanks. He's fine. Take care. Bye.